Hello everyone, this is Gary from Fantastic Fundas, and this lecture is continuation from lecture number 70, and here we are discussing whether the capitalists were controlling the nationalist movement or were they not. Now, to first, let's have the arguments in favor of the fact that the capitalists were controlling the nationalist movement. Let's have the arguments for. First of all, now the for argument include that they said that the capitalists had the money with them, and this money they could use to pressurize the Congress that you better do work as we say, otherwise we will not give you money. That's like one logical argument you are talking about. In fact, all these people went on to say that the Congress demands like this rupee sterling ratio that was being artificially determined by the Britishers, that the tariff protection policy, because Britishers were favoring their own interest, and that the reduction in military expenditure, because after all this military was fighting for Britishers, not for Indians. All these things were only for the capitalist class according to some people, and they said, and because the peace suited the capitalist class. That's like one argument. Number two argument that they give over here is that capitalists played a decisive role in the political course. For example, when Gandhiji withdrew the CDM movement in 1931 after the with Gandhi-Irwin Pact, and also non-launching of any other movement in 1945 to 47, are indicators of the probable fact that the Congress was controlling the activity of these people from Congress. Capitalists were controlling the Congress activity. But it wasn't this simple, right? Now we have to look the other side of the argument also for our paper. Now other side of the argument includes, we are now going to talk about the arguments against. The arguments are that yes, it is true that these were the demands of the capitalists that we just discussed below, but these did not serve only the interest of capitalists. In fact, people like Nehru, who were socialist in their ideology, were also in support of these demands. So these demands were neutral, whether capitalist or socialist. These were for all. Number two, the doctrine of economic nationalism. Okay, if you use this word, it will really impress the checker. The doctrine of economic nationalism, it was done by the earlier nationalists, right? You remember Dadabhai Nauroji, we talked in detail about all that in 1885, 1880s overall. So it was long before these demands of Indian capitalists came. It was already recognized by the grand old man of India, that is Dadabhai Nauroji, at that time only in 1880s. So we cannot say that these are the new demands. If these are not new demands, these are not really the capitalist demand. These are the demands of the time. These are the rights of India. Then now you cannot deny that Congress needed money. Every organization that runs, it needs money. Nothing can actually really work without it. Now, and these capitalists did give money, right? But then it wasn't their interest for which it wasn't the interest of the capitalist for which they were paying money to Congress. It was, appeal to patriotism is enough. Appeal to patriotism is enough for asking the people to money. If there is a good cause, everyone comes out and pays. So that's how it goes. And Congress always launched its movements to its own wisdom and perception. So all movements, for example, when NCM was withdrawn, there was a lot of criticism. Now you see, it was some people supported the decision, some went against it. All in all, what really is happening is that the interest of the country was served rather than the interest of the capitalist. So overall, considering all these arguments, I find it difficult to conclude that capitalists were controlling the movement. In fact, Bipin Chandra, he goes on to say that the Indian national movement in no way was created, led, or in any decisive manner even influenced by the capitalists. So all these things were not done by the capitalists, and not there was even in crucially dependent, the Congress was not crucially dependent on the support of the capitalists, because people were sacrificing the earnings of their lives, the saving of their life, to give it to Congress so that the nationalist movement could be run. So money source was also the people. That is one argument over here. Now it was in fact the capitalists who were dependent on the nationalist movement for their survival, because after they get freedom, after India gets freedom politically, only then the politically they could have survived. So this is the reason. And overall, you see, the capitalists also understood this thing, and that is why, like as I told you earlier also, capitalists were initially opposed and to the nationalist movement, and that is why you will find them opposing NCM. They will oppose Swadeshi movement and so on. Like they can be questioned in your prelim exam also. Okay, let me put this question: which of following were supported by capitalists? Okay, this is the question. Now choices can be: number 1 is the Swadeshi movement, number 2 is NCM, that is non-cooperation movement, number 3 is the CDM, and number 4 is Quit India movement, QIM. Now you have to tell me which among the following movements were supported by Britishers, by the capitalists. The answer is 3 and 4, because Swadeshi movement and NCM were not supported by by the capitalists. I've just little messed up those words. I hope you've understood. Capitalists supported only CDM and Quit India movement, right? I hope I'm clear about this. Swadeshi movement and NCM was not supported by capitalists against the Britishers. That is how this whole thing went. So that is the conclusion of the debate which I started in the last lecture. Now this one part of the lecture. Let me now talk about the other part of the lecture, and that is the FICCI, Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, FICCI. Now before I talk about this, let me just mention few names here. You'll see the pictures also of these names. Now there are two kind of people, the capitalists, which were taking part in India. This is just background to FICCI. Now the first, there are few names. These can be in your exam, especially important for your prelim exam. So this is one is Jamna Lal Bajaj. Whatever pictures I can avail, I'll just put them. You can see them here. The rest of the pictures probably I would not have got them easily. So Lallu Bhai Patel. This was second name. Number 3 is Samuel Aron. Now this is tricky. The rest of the names are easy for you. Number 4 is Lala Shankar Lal. Now these people participated directly, and then there were people who participated indirectly. And who were these people? But I mean, they supported financially if they did not take part in the movement directly. For example, there was G.D. Birla. He was important. Then Ambalal Sarabhai, of course, he was opposed to Gandhi in certain things, like especially in the Ahmedabad milk strike. But still, overall, he did come in support of the nationalist movement by contributing money financially. And then after that is one important person over here, and that is Walchand Hirachand. Now there are few names over here. Like you can always try to remember these names if possible, right? And then there were thousands of traders, merchants, small merchants, and there were of course some capitalists who were neutral or opposed to such things. That we need not go into much details. Anyway, so coming back to this scene of FICCI, Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. In this, two people played a very important role. Who were these people? One was out of these people was G.D. Birla, and other was the second person. His name was Purushottam Das Thakur Das. So these were the two people who played important role. In fact, they were trying since 1920 only to make an organization at the national level to take care of the interest of the capitalist, and this is what even FICCI does today. So while moving on this path, FICCI was formed in 1927 to take care of the capitalist interest. And capitalists actually, they have developed by now a comprehensive economic critique of colonialism. So this is important word over here, that capitalists had developed a considerable economic critique of colonialism. They understood how imperialism, colonialism is ruining them. So what they would do, they understood how through trade, finance, currency management and foreign investment, Britishers were exploiting them. And Congress leaders saw their opinions with respect. I mean, Congress respected these people, the capitalists over here. So FICCI declared that the political and economic movement cannot remain separated. So politics and economy cannot move in isolation. They both have some influence on each other. So that is how capitalists got directly involved in the politics. But their methodology of struggle was not exactly direct. They rather preferred constitutional methods. Constitutional methodology, this is what they preferred. They favored all these than the civil disobedience movement, the CDM or NCM. Why? Because they feared, they had their fears, as I told you earlier also, that if CDM is prolonged, then they would suffer losses and they cannot carry on their business. So all this way was done by them. In fact, these capitalists, they had some minimum standard and they were not ready to fall below them. And what is the proof of it? The proof of this is when they rejected the report of Joint Parliamentary Committee, JPC was formed on constitutional reform. This is the symbol I use for constitution. So JPC, Joint Parliamentary Committee report on constitutional reform was rejected because they thought it will not serve Indian interests. So that shows they had some minimum standards below which they were not ready to fall. And capitalists never did anything on the back of the Congress. Okay, that's like, so back of Congress they never worked. And even in 1930s, when the first RTC was held, FICCI said that we will oppose it because Gandhiji is not going to it. So we will oppose it. So that is how the whole thing was happening at the end of FICCI. Now, before we summarize up the whole lecture, just there's one last topic remaining, and this is about Bombay Plan. Bombay Plan. Bombay Plan was actually, it came up, it was authored, it was an economic plan. It was, okay, let me tell you, it was a plan for land reform, number one. So a lot of people just discard this. They do not mention this point when they talk about land reform. And second was cooperativization of the production, finance and marketing. So they wanted to focus on cooperativization of production and finance and marketing. That was the basic focus. Actually, what is a Bombay Plan? It is nothing but a name given to the common demands of the World War II era, the proposals for the development of post-independence economy. So Bombay Plan did link to post-independence economy of India, of course. And it was signed by a lot of people. Some of the prominent names in this were number one was over here, you can see Tata was there, and then GD Birla was there. Okay, Tata is JRD Tata, and Birla was there, GD Birla was there, and then there was Mr. Shri Ram was there, and then you had this guy called John Mathai, he was there, and so a lot of people like Kasturi Lal Bhai was there, right? So it was, overall it was authored by a group of industrialists and technocrats. Finally in 1944 and it was a 15-year plan. And it, because of this, we could visualize the long-term changes in India. Massive public and private investment was its focus. So this is was the Bombay Plan. Actually, Bombay Plan can be said to be something which created a balance between the capitalist and the socialist interest. Number one. Number two, it took up the question of rapid economic growth. Right, so that's another feature of Bombay Plan, rapid economic growth. That was its focus, which not others could imagine. And it also talked about equitable distribution of wealth. So you, when you write about the debate, you can actually mention this also, that the capitalists are talking about the equal distribution of the wealth. You know, even they argued for partial nationalization. Such were their demands. And one assumption was made by the drafters of Bombay Plan was that it could be implemented only by independent national movement. So they had this assumption also, that so all these indicate that the capitalists were against the Britishers. So clearly, you know, the Indian capitalist was, you know, again was not, it might be against socialists, you can say, it might be against the bourgeois, but it was not pro-imperialist. This is very clear from the Bombay Plan, and that is why we just studied the Bombay Plan, because it was a proof in continuation of the debate that we did in the beginning of this lecture. Now finally, you must also understand that overall, what was the attitude of capitalists towards the left? Actually, with the coming of Nehru and S.C. Bose, you know this, there was a lot of socialist and communist activity, and people were more attractive to that. And but capitalists continued to oppose the left. What they did, they opposed left. With him came socialism, and capitalists opposed the left. And they never compromised with the imperialist interest. That you have to remember. And this, you see, they never compromised with the imperialist. And what is the proof of it, you will say? I'll give you the proof of it. The proof is this: when the government of the British government in 1928 introduced public safety bill to curb communism in India, the capitalists opposed this public safety bill. It was brought to control left, but capitalists opposed this bill. Normally, enemy's enemy is a friend, but here the enemy's enemy is is not a friend, and enemy's enemy is British only, of course, right? And now, before we conclude the whole thing, finally, one last thing which is very important for you from the perspective of our exams, and that is what were Gandhiji's views on the whole of the capitalist thing. You see, he welcomed them in 1922. As we know, that was the year after which they got more inclined to nationalism. But he said, no, we are not dependent on them in any way. So we are not dependent on capitalists in any way. That's number one. Number two is that Gandhi's attitude toward capitalists got hardened. Actually, capitalists committed few mistakes also. After all, they are capitalists and they are there for profits. And what they did during the World War II, when there was a lot of misery in the going on because of the war, many of them actually started indulging in profiteering. There were famines also. 1943 famine was there, and then there were shortages also, wartime shortages. So in wartime shortages and the famines and the repression by the government, and in all these were profiteering, and Gandhi did not like this. So that was the Gandhian idea of the whole thing. If you are asked to, this is the end of the lecture, if you are asked to write a critical appraisal, please conclude that the capitalists stood by the side of the nationalist movement, even when it was threatened by the communists or tempted by the imperialism. So you say in these words, what? They were threatened by whom? Communists. So when capitalists were threatened by communists or tempted by imperialism, capitalists did not sway away. They supported the Indian nationalism. It protected its own class interest as well as the societal interest. These are some of the reasons, like that despite of contending trends, there were in spite of the oppositions in the people of capitalists and the and Nehru and Gandhi, and see, capitalists had arguments with all of them, right? Nehru, Gandhi, and socialist and communist. But in spite of all this, end of the day, there was ideological hegemony. That is how you have to understand this lecture. In this context, you have to conclude and begin, and your whole flow of the answer should be in this flow. Okay, now this time let me just give you a question to write. You can practice it, and if you want you can send it to me also. The question is that capitalist, okay, let me put it this way, Indian capitalist, okay, let's write the word Indian here. Indian capitalist was different from the prevalent capitalists during first half of the 20th century, right? Make sure you do not exceed 200 words. It is very important. And make sure that you write this answer in 400 seconds. Do not take a second more. That is always how you should be practicing. 400 seconds and 200 words. That is how it should be. Okay. So that is all. And before you go, I hope you enjoyed all this series so far on the capitalist. And if you did, please do share it with others. Why keep the knowledge to yourself? And if you share it, this channel expands, and that is the fuel for me to make more videos. So number one is share, and if you really like the videos, then you can always click on the like button below, and so that ways I get to know that you are liking it, right? And finally, if you want the videos of the future to come in your email box, then you will need to subscribe to us, and you can subscribe to us by clicking over here on this button, right? So that is all, and thank you so much for watching this.